So everyone in the TV land knows I had a colonoscopy, and so should you once you get to be of a certain age. I
Those can
won't
be a real
lie to you.
pain in the ass, though.
That's not. It is absolutely not.
You don't
That's the
know
joke.
that though.
That's the joke, along with let me know if you hit oil. But and they've heard every possible drill injury.
God.
Don't laugh at all. No, listen. The procedure is awesome. They give you the same drug that I think killed Michael Jackson, but in a better dosage. So you get a
good.
wonderful sleep. You wake up. There's no pain. There is grogginess, but there's not that nausea you get from the usual stuff. And the folks here, at least, absolutely wonderful staff.
Thank
and
you.
the
We
results,
think
the
you're great,
results
too.
were fine. Yeah, the results were fine. I don't
That's
have to go
great.
back
Yeah,
for
that's
another
great to
7
hear.
years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great to hear.
I won't lie to you though. You got to drink Suprep, which is I want you to
Yeah,
think
it's
of the
not
worst
pleasant.
stuff you've ever had to drink.
Yes, it's hot.
not
You will
pleasant.
be
Vile.
praying for that. You will take that thing,
Yes.
which is now the second worst thing you've ever had, and you'll be using it to flush the taste of Suprep out of your mouth.
Yeah, it is. It is not pleasant at all.
No, it's not that it tastes bad, although it doesn't taste good. It just swallows bad. It's hard to describe. With every swallow, your body says nope, and tries to stop you from doing it in all its many ways that your body has of messing with you. And then once you gag that down, you have to think about the next day you do it again, and this time your body's like, oh hell no. So it's not fun, but folks, you know what is definitely not fun? Colon cancer. So
No, it's
please,
not.
when it
That's
is
the kind of thing
time,
you have to. That's the kind of thing where you drink it. You have to hold your nose and drink it. So
I learned a
And
few tricks.
even then,
I know this is wildly off topic for someone who said it was going to be brief, but
it's
just so
okay.
you know, make it cold, chill it ahead of time.
Okay.
Instead of mixing it with water, which they recommend, which does nothing
Okay.
to hide the horrifying flavor, find the
Yes.
ginger aliest ginger ale you can, like
Okay.
not Schweppes, something a little fancy with real ginger.
like
in it, maybe.
real ginger, like it
Yeah.
actually tastes like you are consuming
Right.
ginger.
It's a little more expensive. It's worth it. You use that instead, and then here's the last trick: you use a straw. So you set the straw back in
Noted.
your throat, so you're kind of bypassing the tongue and
Mm.
getting past it, and that will let you and take. Maybe you got to do it in 10-minute increments, but it's got to be
I
done.
have to. I have to say, Bill, I have never seen this blaxploitation movie that you're talking about. I really am not familiar with
Attack
it
the
at
Block.
all.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
not really blaxploitation, really.
No, I'm talking about. I was saying that your colonoscopy story was.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it
Much-
was a joke.
much scarier.
It was
than
more
anything.
horrifying than
Sounds
Abby.
Yeah. I'm still under the effects of
Oh god.
Suprep. Yeah. So my first one is a wonderful movie called Attack the Block, which came and went. It bombed. It was an official box office bomb. They released it in England where it was filmed, and probably resonated much better with the folks there. It got great word of mouth because it's a great movie. And then they released it here, and it just absolutely died. And there's all kinds of reasons. Attack the Block doesn't necessarily really give you a great title, but then neither was Romancing the Stone, and that did just fine. I don't recall really seeing a lot of marketing. And if they did, I think they did a good job of hiding the aliens, which was a mistake because the aliens are great. And the premise of this movie, it takes place in a very poor tenement in England. And alien creatures show up. Now, for the opening of the movie is future Doctor Who, Jodie Whittaker is walking down the street, and she is mugged by a bunch of hoodlums. And no attempt is made to make these kids likable. They are, just stealing from her because they have power and she doesn't, and she's terrified, and it's very sad. And I think one of the good things about this is you do get to empathize with these kids and you see why they are the way they are and everything, but they don't necessarily sugarcoat the fact that these are not people you want to run into. They're not good,
Yeah.
and they will take what's yours because they have power. It may
Yeah,
be
they
the only
attack the
power they
block.
have.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there is a good positive message, which is that as different as we all are, we might come together if we're faced with complete species annihilation. There's some asteroids or something start hitting the block, and an alien, a creepy looking alien, shows up, and the kids promptly kill it. And this just reminds me of every comedian from the 80s who used to joke about, man, if ET ever came to my neighborhood, we would have killed him. And sure enough, they do. And that's great. So now they've got this alien. They figure they're going to make some good money with it. They take it in show it to the local, drug guy there. What's his name? Hi-Hat. He's terrible, terrible. And turns out that was the female version of the aliens. And then a bunch of the males show up, smelling pheromones in the air. And I got to say, there's a couple cool things about this movie. One, it's very well directed by a gentleman named, as I look it up, Joe Cornish, who has not done a lot. He's done some cool things, but he hasn't done a lot. He wrote The Adventures of Tintin. He wrote Ant-Man back when it was going to be an Edgar Wright movie.
Okay.
I don't know how much of What Remains was his. He's done some cameo roles in Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz. He's friends with all those guys. And that's it. He's really done very little, and probably, because Attack the Block did not do particularly well, he hasn't been given another chance to direct, and that's a shame because it's really super well directed. The monsters. Oh, the monsters are great and so simple. Thinking outside the box. This was not a big budget movie. They dressed a bunch of guys up in gorilla costumes. Sounds bad. But then in post, they basically messed around with the saturation and contrast and made the fur pitch black. So these things are just like pink spots in this vague shape of monsters. And then in a brilliant touch, made the eyes glow and made the teeth glow a brilliant turquoise blue. So really all you see is a void with teeth. It's great. It reminds me a little bit of what Neil Gaiman did in Sandman. Some of the demons in hell. There's one of them in particular. I think it might be Bao that has that look, and I just love that. Anyway, the monsters attack the tenement. The kids fight back with some success, and that's it. That's basically it. So they discover Jody, who's a nurse, is in their lives in the tenement. And there's actually a funny moment where he's like, she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to help you guys. You're the ones who stole from me." It's like, if we'd known you lived here, we wouldn't have, which is kind of touching and probably not true, because if you ever talk to people who live in places like that, they're usually preyed on by their neighbors. Everyone knows who does what. It's just that there's not much they can do about it. But there's a very touching part. Now, this great cast and a young John Boyega. All right. Looking like a child, which is great because he sort of is. Although he looks older than he's supposed to be. There's a scene where he finds his bedroom and it's like done up in Spider-Man posters and everything. Obviously a kid's bedroom. And she's like, "You have a younger brother." It's like, it's his bedroom. He's like, "How old are you?" Like, "I'm 15. You seem much older." And he's like, "Thanks. It's the saddest damn thing ever." Yeah, he's he looks. But they fight back, and it's a cool movie. It's just really well done. It breaks my heart that it did so poorly. People who have seen it, it's kind of like we're in a secret little cult here. It's interesting that this is, I think, the better representation of the underclass than you see in a lot of the movies here, and that maybe makes sense because England class is certainly more openly a thing than it is here. And the idea these kids, this is the best thing that ever happened to them, these aliens attacking, because most of them are on the road to just becoming like, I gotta get this guy's name. What is his name? He's a really good character. I mean, no, he's not a good character. He's a horrible character, but he's a horrible person. Hi-Hats. He's psychopathic. He's absolutely terrifying. A monster, just a complete psychopath. And he's what a lot of these kids want to grow up to be. So there you go. It doesn't wear its politics on its sleeve, but it's there. If you have a brain in your head, you'll certainly see it. But just a great example of good movie making on a low budget, and deserved better fate than it got. And for some reason, hardly ever streaming. Hardly ever streaming. There's some movies that it kills me. I so want to do Excalibur on Decades of Horror, the 1980, but it's never playing. It's never streaming. And it's like, why they bury this movie?
Yeah, we talked about it last time.
Yeah, it's just super frustrating. Finally
Yeah, that's
found Mark
actually
of
one
the
of the
Devil.
reasons that I'm still here, by the way. But
Yeah,
I'm
we started.
I'm charging my phone, so my camera is off until I come back into the
I'm
picture.
glad you did Abby, because Abby is another one of those we've
Because
wanted to do.
I have to contort myself in order to charge my phone, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah, we
But
don't want to see that. For sure.
no, we don't. We don't. We're a family channel, but that being said, hi,
Reggie!
Oh my god.
hello.
Try
Hello.
one more time.
Funky Lollipop is in the
Funky
house.
No.
Lollipops here.
Oh,
Hello.
I had to get in as that's me.
Yeah, you're fine. But yeah, I had actually never seen the movie, and I always wanted to, but it's never around
Mhm.
anywhere. Because
Yeah.
unfortunately, in this day and age, I mean, it's even hard nowadays to buy, movies on Blu-ray or DVD.
Mhm.
It's just there's some movies that are just
eBay.
yeah, well, yeah. But what I'm saying is there's just some movies that are just impossible to find in any format,
That's true.
any streamer.
Well,
That's
Amazon
why
doesn't make it
it's virtually
easier. I
lost.
mean, Amazon
They-
used to have to carry
Yeah.
everything that's
Yeah,
on Blu-ray
yeah.
on print, and now they've cut
Mhm.
out tons of
Their
labels.
their search engine for Blu-rays is god awful nowadays.
It
I mean, it
is.
really is. You type in "Attack the Block Blu-ray," it gives you
Mhm.
everything but what you asked them for, and I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
I have so. But yeah, I definitely have to see that. I like John Boyega. I'm a Star Wars fan, so I always, will watch John Boyega in something. But I definitely need to check out that.
He's in the
check out
greatest Star Wars movie, The Last Jedi.
that. Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, and a controversial opinion. That is
Yeah.
by far my favorite Star Wars.
And for some
Yeah.
reason, Bill, and don't ask me why, I always confuse Attack the Block with that movie, Southland Tales or whatever it is.
Oh,
I
Richard
don't know
Kelly.
why. I don't know why that is. There's something about I don't know. There's something about the way the posters look or something. Just look similar to me, or I have no idea. I'm just weird, but
Southland Tales, Kevin Smith hyped it when it came out because it was by
Yeah.
the guy who did Donnie Darko, but Arrow
Yeah.
put out an edition, and I didn't realize what the plot and cast were, and it doesn't sound like anything I would remotely like. I was just like,
yeah,
I'm staying away from Southland Tales. I'll
Yeah.
just watch Donnie Darko again.
yeah.
I will say one of the problems with Attack the Block was the poster. I don't know how much posters really affect people these days,
Mhm.
but it does not give you even a hint that it's a science fiction movie. It
Yeah.
looks like the Goonies joined a street gang.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was because of the title and that era. I mean, the little bit I heard about it, it was presented as like a hip hop comedy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's got a great soundtrack. It has a
Mhm.
lot of funny bits, genuinely funny, and like I said, great monsters, and not afraid to show a little gore. There's one major
Well, there
character
was-
gets decapitated. So
There was a point in time when that movie was coming out that any kind of like alien monster movie that had a little bit of social commentary, think like District 9 or anything like that,
Mhm.
they weren't doing a lot of money at the box office at that particular period of time. And I remember that in Attack the Block, I saw the trailer when I was going to see another movie.
Mhm.
And I think they do show the aliens in the trailer, but they're kind of like
should.
an afterthought, and it's like a blink and you miss it. And you're like, wait a minute, are there aliens in this movie? And I actually forgot that they were even in the movie until later on when I heard it mentioned. I was like, oh yeah, that's an alien invasion movie, isn't it? So
Well, what the good thing about District 9 though is that it was so inexpensive that it made a humongous
yeah,
profit.
yeah, oh yeah,
So even though
absolutely.
it finally did become mainstream just by
Mhm.
sheer dint of
Mhm.
it made so much money, it just
Mhm.
popped up everywhere. Like you can buy that Blu-ray for $5 on Amazon.
Yeah, absolutely.
They
And,
sell
and meanwhile,
millions of them.
Attack the Block for whatever reason is just harder to.
I know.
Yeah. I would list Attack the Block along with another movie, Dread, that gave audiences
Oh, yeah.
everything they love,
I love
and
Dread.
yet the
Yeah.
audiences did not go
I've
to
not
them.
seen that.
Oh, it's
That's
great.
the,
It's
that's
Judge
the
Dredd.
Carl Urban Judge Dredd movie. You haven't seen that
It's-
yet, Henry?
Oh, I thought you meant Dread, Dread, like a Rastafarian.
Oh no, no.
No.
You're talking
You
about
meant-
Carl Urban Dread?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a good movie.
It's a great movie.
Unlike that horrible original version, it actually takes place in
Yeah.
England.
Yeah.
That's
No,
a
it's a
good character.
fantastic movie. And I probably have more change in my pocket than that movie made at the box office.
Yeah.
For whatever
Yeah.
reason.
In
It's
fact,
starting to
it's
come
out.
around. Some of those
Yeah, I feel like
sites are
those
starting
kind of
to do it.
movies, like Attack the Block, Dread, all those movies, there's a lot of them that are coming out now that are pretty successful. And had they been released, closer to
Yeah.
around this time, I feel like
Yeah.
maybe they would have
Might
found
have
an
been
odd
timing.
mix. Yeah,
Might have been.
absolutely. Hmm.
So there you go. If you have a chance, check it out. And I
Superb.
think I've seen very few people who didn't like it.
I would
So-
definitely like to see it. So which one of you nice ladies would like to go next?
I think we should let Bricky go since she was next on the turn order
Okay,
anyway.
cool.
Okay. I just
Cool,
want to
cool,
make
cool.
sure we're
Well, when we met last, I did review one movie, but then the next one that I was going to do was The Learning Tree,
yeah.
which I thought was like really beautiful, provocative, very sensitive, very poignant. Was directed by Gordon Parks. If I'm sure you all know who he is.
Senior. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like so prolific. Just photographer for Life magazine, musician. So this book, well, it was a book and it was an adaptation, The Learning Tree, from his childhood, as he grew up in rural Kansas. And from what I understand, he was like the youngest of 15 children.
Wow.
And this was just normal life at that time in the 1920s. I thought it was really interesting because of the way the younger kids in the movie, it was a coming of age. So that's another layer. So it kind of just showed everyday life at that time. And it just seemed pretty normal to just do, just everyday life. Everyone was just kind of okay with what was going on because like people are just okay with what goes on today. It's no different in many ways. And then again, it's very different. The main character, which is really interesting, but I found out that the character by the name of, let me just make sure I have his name correct. Let's see, hold on, because I wrote it down. Let's see, Nichols, Calvin Nichols, which was the son of Michelle Nichols from Star Trek, which I thought was really right. So I was like, oh wow, that's pretty interesting. So now when you go back and look, you're like, oh yeah, I do see resemblance in there. So that was like his first movie.
Oh.
And Gordon Parks, this was like his first movie as well. So the person who sort of pushed him into doing it was John Cassavetes.
Yep.
And he was the one who said, hey, look, I read this book. I think it's beautiful. I think you should direct it. I think you should. And he was like, how am I going to do that? I've never directed a movie. So he's like, look, I'm going to speak to Warner Brothers. I'm going to get them to read it. They read it. They loved it. They said, okay, look, we want you to do the screenplay. Parks was like, I've never even done that before. He was like, well, I think you should do this. And then they also wanted him to do the musical score, which he did as well. And I thought that was just absolutely mind-blowing for a first-time director, writer, screenplay. Like he was just sort of the Renaissance man. And that was really very exciting to me to know that he can wear all these hats. He's also like my personal, like my muse, in terms of just having all of these different disciplines, artistic disciplines, photographer, writer, poet.
Well, I think
director.
for the benefit of people watching our show, they might know this or might not realize it.
Oh,
But
sure.
Gordon Parks was the very first African American director for Hollywood ever.
Yes.
I mean, the first that worked in Hollywood studio directing any movie at all. And that was what, like 1968, maybe? 68?
Yeah, 68, yeah, 67, 68. He also
But it's
did
amazing
Shaft
he
as
did
well.
that, and then he did Shaft. So
Yeah.
And then his son did Superfly. It's like, wow.
Right. Yeah. So that in and of itself was a big deal. Considering that he was just the first of anything is always like the most, I guess, daring, because they're the ones that lay the groundwork for whoever comes behind you. And then everyone else from there is just, I feel, improving on that and just understanding that he was going in just as blind as everyone else was. So this movie takes place in rural Kansas. Um, it's sort of like a generational thing where you've got the family of this young Black boy whose name is Newt. The character's name is Newt, and his family, and they were all born into slavery, and then this is out of slavery. So there's a whole different mindset that they have, the younger kids have, as opposed to how the parents go through life in this town. And so there's a group of kids that they all hang around and everybody's having a good time, but they get into trouble. But they're getting into trouble with the people in the town who were basically the people who ran the town, and other people were subservient to them. The Black people were subservient to them. And they just could not quite make that connection. Like, they're saying, look, I'm going to leave this town. I'm going to be somebody, and their teachers are telling them, look, you're not going to do anything. Like, why are you even trying? So there's a lot of those sorts of things that go on. It's also a love story. It's so multi-layered that I believe that to get the best out of it, I would strongly suggest people just watch it, because I'm going to tell you about it, but I don't want to like spoilers. Are there spoilers on this channel?
No, I break them all myself.
No, that's fine.
Do you? Okay.
It's
Yeah.
basically an individual discretion at this point.
Okay. Well, I would say, in terms of just how the story is laid out, it kind of reminded me of, but not quite, so don't take it to heart this way. It kind of had like, what is it, 12 Years a Slave? But don't go there. What I'm saying is, it just shows everyday life, the way things were. It wasn't anything spectacular, but there was not care, concern, consideration for a whole group of people in this town. And yet they all had to live together. And you had some people who walked on eggshells, and then the other people who were like, if you don't walk on eggshells, this could happen. But then you had, like today, you had people who just didn't believe in treating people that way, mistreating Black people. And then you have people like today who are okay with doing that. So I think sometimes when people see these types of movies, they believe like all white people were like out of pocket and they were like rogue. And it's not like that. You have some people who are just like not feeling it. And then you have some people who are like, this is just the way it should be. And so this young boy who wanted to be more than what his uncle was, who went blind. I'll let you figure out how that happened, but he's blind. He's like a mentor to him, and basically speaks to him about the world, even though he can no longer see it, and the world that he lives in, and the colors he remembers, and how he wishes the world could be, even though he can't see the world that he's no longer a part of in that way. So it was really beautiful. There is some, how can I put this without spoiling? There is some people who get killed, and it's just very casual. Again, it reminds me of today, where Black people just get shot, and then everyone's like, well, okay, that's just how it is. But then you have people today that say, well, that was a long time ago. Those things don't happen anymore. But those things do happen. Do you know what I mean? Even today, those things are still happening.
Tragic.
Like I'm in the place where I see the patterns just repeating themselves. So it's not like I'm having I'm feeling horrible or down and depressed about it. It is just what it is.
No.
Again, there are all types of people in the world, and there are all types of people who understand injustice, and they're going to fight for that. And then there's some people who feel, why do we even bother? Because this is just the way the world is. Accepting it is not the way. But in this movie, it just tells the tale very simply of rural Kansas, a Black family that is very God-fearing. They are, I would say, clean and articulate. I know that's kind of funny, right? But anyway, they're like this, really like sort of middle class rural family, and they're doing really well for themselves in a way in that time, and how they're just trying to maneuver through the world without stepping on too many toes, and helping their children get to the other side of all of the tragedies that befall them because they're just children, and they're from a different time, and they don't understand the things you're doing are going to get you murdered. And then there's a big court case, and you know, life goes on. I don't know what else to say beyond that. I don't want to give too much away, but there are a lot of lessons to be learned in this movie, of good and evil, how we all live together, how we could live together. I think that's right now that's kind of about it. If you have any questions or something, I don't know what else to say beyond that.
I've seen it
No.
once. It's been a little
Yes,
while.
no.
Yeah.
Okay,
That
okay,
sounds
okay.
interesting.
Well,
Yeah.
I
It's
mean,
an important movie for sure.
Is it
It's an-
is it easily available?
I think
know
it's
where
on
it's-
Blu-ray.
it's on YouTube.
Oh, good.
Nice.
It's on YouTube. The musical score is really beautiful. Cinematically, it's really beautiful as well. It almost has, again, I hearken to these movies just to kind of give you a feel of it. It kind of has a little bit of a Peyton Place type of energy, where all these people live together in this town, and then there's gossip, and then there's a subtext, there's a tension, there's a racial tension, that's always in because of, again, the times. It's in the 20s. It's a coming of age story. It's a love story, but it's also the backdrop is also this racial tension, and how people maneuver through this, through this little town, without stepping on too many toes. There are people who are very friendly and want what's best for everyone, and there are people in the town who want to maintain power and control. Again, it's very much like how it is today, but just set in a different time. And I found the similarities really striking. But it's really beautiful. I would say I think you should watch it.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, it really is. It's really poignant. Again, for the first time director, and his musical score. I think it's a heavy movie, but then again, it's also very playful and light. And it's very tragic because there's a lot of tragedy that happens as well. And I don't think Gordon Parks doesn't shy away from that, even for the time that it was made, and that he was able to have the freedom to show this world in this light, the way he was able to just not have the studios tell him, well, you have to cut that part out, or this part is too much. Or, I mean, it's not like today where they would be like, you can't do that. You know what I mean? Like, it's a whole different time. And I think that's why these movies that we discuss on this channel are so, so important, because we come at it from a different perspective. We're from a different time where we're not easily offended, and we are able to express how we feel without stepping on each other's toes, and get the most out of the movies. And
Absolutely.
hopefully people will be able to watch these movies, see them, and understand them in the context, if they can, that they were made in, and appreciate them. Because right now, I was watching something today about streaming services, and I know I'm sort of going a little off track, but not really, about streaming services and how the movies that you'll see, like say a Disney film, or for example, they'll cut pieces of the movie out because they're like, oh, this is offensive to some people, so we're going to cut it out. But what happens in 5 years or 10 years? There's going to be something else that offends someone too. You're not going to have a movie left, or you're going to have a Swiss cheese, and you're not going to have a movie with all of the context that made the movie great. So if you're going to remove things from these movies because you're afraid it's going to offend someone, then you're taking away the artistic vision.
Yeah.
So we're living
I
in a
agree
time.
100%.
Yeah.
Do you
I think the
understand, Ron?
Swiss cheese analogy is actually really good. And one of the things that I've noticed about kind of the trend of pseudo art studio, like A24 does a lot of this, but they're not the only people that do this, is they start putting out genre movies that they sort of intend to be a bit more palatable in the sense that they're like, well, we don't really want the content to offend anybody, but we want it to be an artistic movie. But oh, if it's like those cult movies, it's just going to be too, crazy for them to be able to handle. And that's a lot of those kind of movies that they're putting out. I mean, you see any of these cult pieces that we're all talking about here, and I think one of the reasons they still pack a punch is just because of how raw the emotions are and what they're talking about, and they open you to different points of view that maybe you didn't have prior to experiencing that movie.
Right. And you wouldn't have that point of view if they remove the pieces of the movie that will allow you to question and to think critically. It's like, who are they trying to protect? Like, you just can't go around the world in a bubble. You have to bounce up against some sharp edges, and those sharp edges get you to ask questions of somebody that you trust or know and say, hey, what did this mean? What did that mean? Why is this happening? I mean, you can't protect everyone from the world. So I think these movies are good entree into that.
I agree completely, but I think it's becoming increasingly a minority view, which is unfortunate.
This is why we focus on what we do, because I think that right now we're in a time when America especially and its leaders are beholden to, and it's entertainment, by Hollywood, are beholden to corporations. So everything's big money. Movies cost way too much money to make, even when they don't need to. And everybody wants to recoup and wants to get richer and richer because, capitalism is a horrible failure that's killing all of us, literally killing the whole planet. And, they worry about, well, we'd like to make another couple of million off this if we just take this one shot where there's a hint that might be some gay people, or maybe in China they won't like this movie if they do it this way. And I don't bother with Hollywood. I don't watch Hollywood other than the Marvel movies. I don't mess with Hollywood.
Well, the fact that they're having to take all of the gay stuff out for the Chinese market doesn't exactly give us much of an alternative to capitalism now, does it?
Well, I will say this, though. Chinese people have a far higher standard of living than we've ever had in America. People there aren't starving. There's no homelessness. That's no, I just watched the whole thing about it. I just watched the whole thing about it this morning. I mean, we're not talking about the freedom issue. That's not the issue. The quality of life issue.
I've talked to some folks from China, and what they described was pretty awful.
I've heard very mixed things from people in China. So that's kind of one of those things where I feel like probably like here, some people are pretty well off and some people are very, very not okay.
Across the board, people in China have a higher standard of living than
I would say that
numerical fact.
But
money-wise,
people,
the money that goes into your pocket.
Are more people trying to escape into China or out of China? And if it's out of China, then why?
I don't think people are trying to escape out of China.
If they were allowed,
are they here
in China? The more Chinese people are coming into here than are people here going out to China.
People escaping here are the people of the countries we're bombing. China's not one of them yet.
There's a tremendous amount.
We're causing the refugees, not the governments themselves.
Not the refugees from China. If we're bombing China, I think we're in World War III.
Well, our president wants to bomb China. He's not the only one. I mean, we might be in World War III.
Well, I think actually.
Hey, I did want to say
they say it on TV. I mean, he says it openly. It's not like he's making anything up.
I wanted to comment on something we talked about earlier, and not that Hollywood is not a culprit of this, because they are, but just one other thing I wanted to rear to was I've noticed the sort of censorship of topics or kind of ideas that don't sit quite as well with people happens a lot more with streaming movies, especially when stuff is kind of exclusive to streaming, or they bring a classic movie over into streaming and they might cut, some of the questionable content. I mean, Hollywood obviously does make their, to be a certain way and fit certain quotas and all that kind of stuff. But I've definitely seen a lot of stories with certain things, like when French Connection, I think when that just recently streamed and they cut something out of that, like different
they're
things.
Going back to older movies and
like things like that. And it's just it's interesting to me, and what I've always liked about cult movies, especially, and not that Briggy, not that your movie necessarily is. I mean, it sounds like it is and it isn't. It's not quite a genre movie per se, but what I've always found interesting about this kind of movies is a lot of them, not necessarily what we're talking about today, but you kind of fundamentally disagree with a lot of those on like a social and political level. You know, a lot of like slasher movies that I like and things like that from the 70s and 80s, they're not the most socially progressive, but at the same time, they kind of open your worldview, I think, a little bit, or they see kind of skewered perspectives of things. And you think like, oh, you know, I never really thought of that. So that's one of the reasons I always like those kind of movies. And one of the reasons I think they don't really make movies like that again, because it's like trying to kind of homogenize the voices in them rather than give a lot of individuality and character to all
They
of
make
those
them in
different
other
voices.
countries. They don't make them in
Yeah.
America.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, for instance, we were
So-
talking about Mubi. If you go on Mubi, I
Mhm.
mean, there's tons
Mhm.
of movies that like we're talking about
Oh, yeah.
constantly coming out of
Oh,
Europe
yeah.
and Asia.
Oh yeah.
It's just Hollywood is, like I said, they're bundled up with this whole
yeah,
fear of whatever profit of
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
they're a
offending
machine, so they're going to
Yeah.
going to see what works. I mean, there are some movies that are just flukes. It's like a movie that they're going to put out. I can't think of one, but think of a movie that was just just a movie, and then all of a sudden it caught fire. Once a
Mhm.
movie catches
Mhm.
fire, it's like the Eye of Sauron. It's like, oh my God, we've got to make 1,000 of these.
That's right.
Oh
You know
yeah.
what I
Oh
mean?
yeah. Oh
You know
yeah.
what I
We
mean?
finally figured out what they want.
And
Yeah,
a lot of
yeah. It's like,
times,
let's
and a
make
lot of
1,000
times,
of
it's for the wrong reasons too.
Yeah,
It's that,
yeah.
they don't learn anything from the movie that they previously
Mhm.
watched. So that was just
Mhm,
my 2
mhm.
cents as far as you saying that. But I really like that Swiss cheese analogy, and I'm going to start using that too. So I just want you,
Oh,
just want you to
totally.
know that I want.
That's
So
fine. It's not mine. It
thanks
just,
for adding that to my
Yeah.
adding that to my repertoire.
Oh
Of
no,
things I
it's
can
true.
say
I
with these
feel
things.
like these movies, even this movie, The Learning Tree, there's a scene which I'm surprised they did not take out. I've seen the movie before, so it is, and it's intact. They haven't they haven't done anything to the movie to disturb the artistic integrity of the movie. But there's an opening scene where there's the young main character. He's caught in a tornado, and there's a woman who works at a brothel. You find out later on, but they're both caught in this tornado. And as he's trying to run, he falls and he hits his head, and she saw him in the grass. And so she rescues him and takes him to a barn. And her name is like Mabel or something like that. Anyway, so because they're both freezing, they take their clothes off. She takes his clothes off. And so you've got like the scene of like this. So again, it's a coming of age. So
Yeah.
that's like
Yeah.
his first encounter.
Yeah.
He's kind of not quite lucid because he's fallen, he's hit his head, and then he
Yeah.
hurt his knee. So she tears her dress and she ties his leg up so that it's not bleeding. And then she hugs him because it's cold. And so that scene happens. And I'm surprised they didn't even cut that scene out. That might be too much for people to
Well,
see this
yeah.
older.
Well, I don't, since it's not really on streaming, I think they haven't really bothered, with it. Once it's on Hulu or something, maybe they'll change that. But something I wanted to bring up with that, you look at the poster for The Learning Tree. If anybody Googles it, looks at it, it tells so much of a story.
Yeah.
And when Bill was talking about Attack the Block and how they kind of had a lousy poster, I mean, just think about how the storytelling quality of posters has really gone down in the past 30 years or so. I mean, The Learning Tree, it's composited well. You look at it, it tells you everything you need to know about the movie. If they marketed it now, it would be like two people very close up to each other. You wouldn't have any idea what the movie was about. So yeah.
Yeah, it really has. It really, like I said, it packs a punch because it's very unexpected. And but also it's weird because when you get to see Black life in a way that that Hollywood has decided Black people only live a certain way, and that's usually not very complimentary, I'll put it that way. But in this town, Black life is portrayed in an entirely different way.
Yeah.
And I would just sort of leave that to the viewers to just go and see. It's just, it has a very Huckleberry Finn type of energy
Yeah. Oh,
as
yeah.
well.
It's So it's like rural, you would say in some ways. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's not really a movie about exploitative kind of like
No.
black pain. It's very,
No.
you know, it's a humanistic movie
Yeah.
from what it sounds like
It's
to
just
me.
very matter of fact. It's like,
Mhm.
this
Yeah.
is just how they live. It's not showing
Yeah.
you. It's
Yeah.
very, like I said, that's why I said 12 Years a Slave, but don't think of it as that, to that extreme. It's just everyday life
Yeah.
as Black people living in
Yeah.
slavery and Jim Crow slavery.
Yeah,
'Cause that's
because
really
one
the
of the
two.
one of the reasons that 12 Years a Slave is an effective movie, especially as Oscar movie, is because
Mhm.
it doesn't try to infantilize or sort of you know, make cloying the ideas that are in that. It is slice of life, even if parts of the slice of life are not pleasant at all.
Right.
It
Right.
that storytelling is very matter of factly as well.
Yeah, I have more respect for that type
Yeah.
of movie, quite honestly, if you're
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
do a movie like that.
Yeah.
Other
Mhm.
like instead of like Mandingo or something like
Yeah,
that. You know
yeah.
what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah, no,
Like,
That
I
is
know no, I know
exploitation.
exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so that's me.
Sounds good.